Yeah, let's go. All right. Hey.
Good evening.
Good
Good
evening.
evening. You are live with Courtside with Lawman,
And Carmen B.
and we are here to talk about issues that affect the public related to the criminal justice system.
And a little politics on the side, possibly.
Of course, because that is always important. Again, we want to remind people that you have to be involved politically. You have to vote if you want to have an impact on the laws that seriously impact your life.
True. And to vote, you got to know if you don't believe in anybody, go to the Secretary of State's website and check out your eligibility to be a voter. Believe it or not, as long as you are not in prison and not on parole, you can vote. Register to vote.
Yes, and parole includes, I believe, the PCRS. So if you are on PCRS, you are not eligible to vote. But anything other than that, you are eligible to vote.
Exactly. And please exercise it. Go register right now, anytime. Get on there. It doesn't matter if you've never registered ever before. Go do it now. Because I'll tell you this, felons can now serve on the jury. So even if you thought you couldn't serve on a jury because you may have had a felony, register your car, register to vote so that you can get into the pool that they pull jurors from. So today, like we said, we're going to talk a lot about cop issues because they've just been popping up again. And it seems like over and over again, we see sort of the same kind of conduct over and over.
That is true. But before we get that started, we would like to remind you that you can call in. You can put your questions in the chat, and we will answer any questions that you have. We would remind you that our answering of questions does not create an attorney-client relationship between the caller or the commenter and myself or with Lawman, Keith Staten.
And we want you to like us at YouTube. What's that saying?
Courtside Instagram.
Yes.
On Instagram, Courtside.
Please like us. Click on us. Do what you got to do. Spread the word, though, that we talk real game here. And, it'd be great to participate with people. Okay. We do have a number, I think, right, to call in today?
We do. Today, the number is 916-443-5288. Again, 916-443-5288. We're using a different number today due to technical difficulties. So again, the number 916-443-5288.
Okay. Well, let's see, Carm. We have a lot of subjects, but let's get started on one that I know has been inflammatory to a lot of people. And it's all about money. I truly believe that money and how much money someone has, it's going to change things in people around them. And when we start talking about things, and now in politics, they're passing it back and forth, like defund the police, that became a big thing, right? Defund them. And what their response was, well, I kind of dare you to do that. You try to mess with our money and we're going to get funny. Mm-hmm. And a good example of that is I was watching Dave Chappelle and the thing that he's gone through with Netflix and some of the large corporations about messing with his money. And he tells a story about how when he was young, a comedian kind of pulled him aside when he was messing with his money because he was playing with his 3-card Molly game. And he learned that lesson and used that in order to get his money from Netflix this time. So we know money rules everything. And money with the police means freedom for them to do and buy things that they want, things that they need.
Like facial recognition devices,
military outfits, and more devices, for either breaking down doors or communities and things like that.
Or surveillance.
Surveillance, for sure. That's true. They get that, remember that, the thing that would,
Stingray?
Stingray would act like a cell phone tower, basically. They can put it there, interrupt calls, make moves on those calls, and then take it right away.
And you never know. You would think that your cell phone is using the regular cell tower to communicate when it's actually using their device.
Right. And they're doing you know, the things that they've always been doing, so to speak, which is having a disparate division between contacting black people versus white, writing us tickets more than others, um, being arrested more than others, being searched more than others. You know, it almost seems like it's almost a targeting of us. And I believe in some ways it really is when we start looking at these stories that come out about how even if they're renegade cops, and there's always that the one bad apple theory, but it turns out, well, that apple was on a branch and it may have been bad, but everything on that branch might be bad. And that's what we're finding out, that things are going up more than just that one apple that falls. And a good example of that is that Louisiana case, where the one deputy who died had made statements and then about what they had done to this man. And it turns out they kind of ran him off the road. They really beat him up. I mean, and the whole department had to hide it until that one deputy, that loose apple, fell off. He passed away. Somebody had recorded his conversation about what he had done. And then it all started coming out 2 years later. So something like that, the whole branch is rotten. And maybe the tree.
Maybe the entire department.
Right. And so when we say defund, we mean what we're saying probably is taking an axe and cutting down that tree.
And we're saying also there needs to be accountability with the types of budgets that we are seeing in law enforcement departments with absolutely no accountability as to how that money is spent.
Yeah. And how they do their jobs in a lot of ways. I mean, you have there's been a I guess I hate but I love it, using analogies. Okay, football. I played football in my life. Nobody cared whether I had a concussion or not. Nobody cared how hard we would hit each other. The Oakland Raiders, were known for that. I mean, even in basketball, the bad boys and all that stuff. And you hear those old players today, right, say, in our day, we were tougher, we were this, we were that. And then we learn, well, CTE, wow, okay, and now you're getting brain damage. Now you're killing yourself, you're dying. And was it worth it to be tough? And so what we do is we change the game. In Little League football, not Little League, but I guess popcorn and all that, and even in some, I think, high school, they don't even kick off anymore or something, or kick off. And even in pros, kickoffs have totally been changed because they don't want such impacts anymore. So there was a harm. There was something that came from this, and it was just being Billy Badass, and it's just, being aggressive as the sport dictates, right? Football is an aggressive sport. Mm-hmm. Basketball can be an aggressive sport, and people were just playing aggressively. But yet harm is coming from it. And it took a while. It takes a while for it to start to change. But rules start changing the game. And maybe that's what's happening here, is that we've got people who are used to playing the game a certain way. And you almost have to change the rules all the way across the board for people to start understanding that, this change has got to come really from that root all the way through. And this regrow a new tree. So it isn't refund, it's sort of like regrow the police department or refertilize some ways the police department. Because, it hides a lot of things. How many stories are coming out where there are these supremacist groups or individuals with that way of thinking who are actually police officers? And people like me and probably any reasonable person would say, wow, a white supremacist group amongst police officers. And deep down inside, I'm going, oh my God. Research how many black people are killed by that police department. And it may start saying, hey, wait a minute. We have to really be careful if anybody has such views at all. And there's really nothing you can do to make someone change their views,
I
but
guess one of the issues is, though, how far
firing
up the chain
it
do those
goes.
views go? Because if you have a chief who feels that same way, or who is part of a white supremacist organization, he certainly is going to hire people who are like-minded.
That's right. Like in Compton, I understand. You know, they have a little gang within the LAPD department that works that unit, and Oakland, Ranger Rough Riders or something like that that blew up, and then I
That
think
they
in
just
LA again.
that they discovered.
Yeah, they always discover these rogue groups of police officers and stuff.
But are they really rogue groups when they're
Right,
operating like that? And everyone in the department knows that they're operating like that.
right. And you speak up.
And if they don't know, then that means that they're not doing their job in terms of managing their employees.
Yeah. And so how do we change it then? I guess really this defund is more like a regrow, right? And where that starts would probably be our city councils, the people who really fund the police in terms of hiring processes and things like that. I mean, there are so many things you can do, and it's not that it hasn't organizations haven't changed before. You see, like football and different rules, people just got to play by them.
Yeah.
Period.
So organizations can change. And again, if we want this union, this state of United States to survive, we have to do better. And when I say we, I'm talking about we, the people, all of the United States citizens. If they
Right.
want this democracy to work, it must work for all of the citizens, not just some of the citizens.
Right. And we've seen how being reactive shows up at the state capitol, and how that is now played out. Here we are this much time later, and people are still calling them heroes and things like that, and not understanding that the strike that they truly have made against democracy and the country succeeding, and how important all of it really is, because we have never seen that before.
Not in our lifetime.
Not in our lifetimes. So organizations can change, and so it's probably going to be our city councils pushing them for change, legislators pushing for change in the way they train and how they hire.
But the way that is going to happen is we're going to have to
Vote.
push those elected officials.
That's true.
Because
That's true.
sometimes the status quo will just continue, right?
Yes, like Brown versus Board. They made that decision 9 years later. They're trying to put it in operation. So the law doesn't change someone's mind. It really is pushing the people, changing it. And it's a tough thing, because sometimes we all feel like we're out here all alone. And what can I do, or what can my faction do about it? We scream, we holler, we go out, we protest, and then something happens and we do it again. But that ought to just motivate us to know that, well, maybe what we're doing is not the whole thing we can do. We've seen great changes in Georgia politics, when people are really focusing on putting people in certain places. And we know from history that tells you that's how that works here.
And I will say, we have to remember there are some positions in law enforcement that are elected positions. For example, the sheriff of Sacramento County.
Yes.
And again, I would remind people that I don't really like the term defund the police, because the conservatives tried to turn that around and say, oh my goodness, what they want is a state with no police, and they just want complete chaos. And no one is asking for that. But what we're saying is, as a society, what does it say about us if greater than 50% of the budget of a city goes to law enforcement and not to programs that can help the citizens?
At least children. I wouldn't mind. I'd pay even more taxes. Children, the benefit, we're going to be children. And that's what the lotto was sold as, right? That this is going to fund our education forever. And it's been, 25 years or 30 years or so. And we don't hear about how it's impacting anything.
No, or how that money is actually being spent specifically to
to
help
education.
schools,
Right.
especially when we keep hearing about the downfall of public schools,
Right.
how they don't have the funding that they need.
So it just begs questions. It begs questions. And it just means more people. We've got to be diligent, get involved, ask questions, do what you can. So enough on that part about reform, I guess, but because that's a big one. That's the umbrella. That's the goal.
Uh,
But things have been happening. Go ahead, start.
yes. Well, I was just going to say, I want to remind the public that there is a very important vote coming up in California, and that is the recall election.
Mm,
The conservatives have a movement where they are trying to recall Governor Newsom. We don't want that. I don't want that. I'm not going to tell anyone how to vote, but decide where you sit on that issue. Look at how you will be impacted if he is recalled. Look at the choices for who
mm.
might then be in office if he is recalled, and whether or not that person is going to serve your interests in your community.
On Newsom, look, he's going to be termed the liberal, the left, and the leader of the left, all that, Kamala's friend, all that kind of stuff, as it is a negative. But the one thing I think that he did that people are always leaning on is that whole dinner that he had without mask and things like that when people were being told stay in and wear your mask. And I go, well, okay, he shouldn't have done that. But then I look now how, oh my God, well, look at these governors and who are saying to their constituents, don't wear a mask at all, even though a pandemic is coming back again. Or, sorry, I told everybody not to do that, but I'm not going to change the law. People who say, I won't vaccinate.
That is true, because there is a new variant to this virus,
Right.
that is raging through the entire world.
And it's almost ridiculous if I'm going to hold that one little thing to Gavin, right? That, oh, you went to dinner, hey, you didn't have a mask, but yet remember he was on the forefront of trying to move forward in our state that may have saved a lot of us when the disease hit. So you have to weigh that and say, well, am I changing him because somebody just says he did that, or he's a liberal, or well, let me see what he's done overall here, and then vote, like she says, But just make sure you understand what you're doing when you do that.
Research the issues that are important to you, and look at where he stands on those issues, and look at where other candidates stand on those issues.
Correct. And also remember our presidential election of 2016, where an individual running was doing things that, let's just say, immorally wrong, caught in them, and yet we elected the person. So
we did not, but some group of Americans voted for that particular president,
right.
And he was a person with, I would say, many problems, many failures in business and in morals,
in marriages.
Yes,
and we push him through. So people can make mistakes. Okay, have the dinner, all right, but don't let something like that chintzy as that.
And again, I think that was still early enough in the pandemic where a lot of people felt like they were protected. Yeah, that's happening to these people, but that's not going to happen to me because I wash my hands all the time, right? That was still early on. And I don't think a person should be judged by one event like that.
Correct. Because we're all human and we're going to make mistakes, period. I don't care who you are.
Yes.
So, yes, vote. Think about the elections coming up and vote. So, I want to take another event I'll just mention because it's very similar to other things that have happened. And that is that a police officer, when there was a disturbance at a mall, Alabama, a mall shooting was occurring. a black man, 21 years old, and I believe he was a soldier. Yeah, I believe he was a soldier. Yeah, he was a member of the U.S. Army, and he had a gun permit. And he was in the mall attempting to help victims during the mall shooting when a police officer shot and killed him instead. Now, he was shot 3 times in the back and realized he was helping individuals escape a shooting. So, the attorney general, I think in February, 2019, the Alabama Attorney General's office ruled that the officer's actions were justified. Now, of course, just hearing something like that, you've got to say to yourself, well, I can't agree with that. Because if the man was the shooter, why is he helping individuals get out of there? And shouldn't the officer had seen that guy was not the one causing the damage, but actually helping individuals? Shouldn't he have seen that and not just saw black man with a gun?
Again, there needs to be some kind of retraining so that the automatic response when you see
black man
brown
with a gun
skin isn't to fire first.
Correct. But it's what has happened so many times, over and over and over, whether it's a cell phone, whether it's a fake gun, doesn't matter. They come in and automatically assume and presume that the black person is the one that's causing the problem.
Yes.
I mean, whether it's kids on skateboards and officers, coming up with guns. I mean, I've seen enough video to where, like they say, you can be doing anything. You can be doing anything in life, and the police run upon you. Which brings me to one other one, Carm, if I can bring that one up. There was a realtor in Wyoming, and he was showing a house to a black man and his 15-year-old son. And what happened was that as he was showing the house, and all three are black, as he was showing the house, the police arrived. And they arrived and had pulled guns out and were hollering for individuals to come outside. Well, they heard police coming. They were on the second floor of the house and looked out the window and said, "Hey, what's going on?" And the police were demanding that people come outside with their hands up. And the man tried to explain that, "Hey, I'm a realtor. I'm showing the house to these people." And they did not want to hear that. They wanted them to come out with their hands up. And eventually they did do that and cuffed them all and detained them until the man showed that he was a realtor. Showed him his license, his badge, and things. And then they, "Oh, sorry, and let him go."
Rather than giving him the opportunity, especially if he's saying, "I'm a realtor, officer. Hold on, let me show you my credentials." What was the problem with letting him show the credentials? Clearly, if this is a house that is for sale, you're going to have realtors showing it to people. Why is the automatic assumption that if African American people are in a home, a crime is being committed?
We've seen that happen when African Americans get Airbnbs to places sometimes.
And
yeah.
If you feel that someone is trespassing at a home, and okay, so let's say there was a neighbor who called the police and said, "Hey, this is an empty house, but some people are in it. I don't know why they're in it." I don't know why you automatically go to the assumption that they must be committing a crime.
Now, I'll tell you, in this case, the police had gotten called out because someone said someone's in that house, because someone had been in that house maybe, I think, 2 weeks prior. But they caught that person. That person was in jail at the time. that had been in the house before.
So they couldn't have been.
So it couldn't have been the same guy.
Back, even though apparently that is what the caller said. I think that the guy who was in the house is back again. Now, law enforcement has the ability to check almost instantaneously on the location of someone
who was arrested.
They can also check that address and see who was who was arrested. So they clearly could have checked to see, okay, the person we arrested is in custody.
Exactly.
And why not? How different would that experience have been had when they knocked on the door, they saw 3 white people, white man in a suit, another white man dressed casually, and a 15-year-old son. How would that have gone? Would they have been given the opportunity to explain, oh yeah, I'm just a realtor? Probably wouldn't have even had to show us credentials.
And who wants to play that scenario out all the time so that we can see that difference? Because this is what we tell people about seeing color or not seeing color, is that everyone sees color. It's just what do they do when they see it, right? Because, everybody looks at a sunrise, right? Some people say, what a beautiful thing. Others say, oh my God, that's so bright. That hurts my eyes. So you can look at the same thing and you'll see 2 different things. So we're all seeing color, but who's reacting to it? And one of the things that, I saw a clip. Was it Dick Cavett? No. The guy with the white hair, Donahue.
Uh-huh.
When Farrakhan was on Donahue, and he was talking about, well, white people were asking questions. Why are you so evil and this and that? And they were really terming him as a hater, a racist. When you hear Farrakhan's responses on the show, he is the most balanced individual when he's doing his response. But one thing that came out from even the audience, the white people in the audience, was, we fear you. We are afraid. And I thought that was weird, because I'm going, well, what experience did you have to make you afraid of me? And why do you think that I am someone to fear? But that's what happens. That's it.
Well, I will say part of that is how we are portrayed in the media. We know that we are only 13% of the American population, but if you look at we have limited numbers. We are clearly outnumbered, and as a result, even though there is a greater percentage of us that are accused of crimes and that are arrested and in prison and are on probation, we still are a smaller number just by nature of the fact that we are only 13% of the population. But if you look at what is displayed on the nightly news in terms of people committing crimes, you would think that the only people committing crimes are people of color. We know that's not true.
But if you watch enough TV in your lifetime, then that's what you see. And that's part of the programming, right?
And causes that fear. Someone
breaking in at night, what do they look like? You see, they've done studies like that. Close your eyes and stuff. Think of a guy's, doing this to you. What does he look like?
I had a case once where it was young white men who were robbing a pharmacy. They did not have on masks. They did not have on gloves. But when and this was in broad daylight, when several of the witnesses were asked to describe the people who had committed the robbery, they described Black people. There was video. So clearly no African-American people were involved at all. But yes, there have been studies done that show that prejudice, and it exists in every facet of life, including, and studies have been done, I believe, either by Harvard or Yale, in terms of seeking housing or seeking jobs.
Right. Your name.
Yes. If you have a name that sounds African American, you are less likely to get a call back.
That's right. They probably will answer one call for Reggie Jackson. But then when they find out he's not the guy that was hitting all the home runs for the A's, I don't know if we want to meet Reggie Jackson.
And I would note that one of our viewers indicated that also when, as Americans, we tend to consume a lot of television. Yeah. And that is what fictional television shows portray as well. That the criminals on the show are African American.
Yep. So the realtor and the buyer, potential buyer, and the 15-year-old boy, I think the potential buyer said, well, this kind of tells me what kind of place I'm about to move into.
Yeah, it probably isn't going to buy that house.
Right.
The boy but they handcuffed. They didn't just bring them out and say, hey, we need to detain you and figure out what's going on.
Right.
They handcuffed both men and the 15-year-old child. Now, we know that you can detain someone. You can say, hey, I need you to come out. It's more than one officer there. So, it's not the situation. I'm the only officer, so I have to handcuff them to make sure I have control. No, there are multiple officers on scene. So while you're determining what's going on, you can say, hey, I just need to detain you. We got a call. Oh, you're the realtor. You have your credentials. But that's not what happened. Number one, not just they wouldn't look at his credentials. They had guns drawn. Where was the threat? No one said they saw anyone with a gun. There was no threat to the officers whatsoever. But this is the way these officers have been trained to believe that they could treat us. And I'm very embarrassed because it happened in Michigan, my home state.
It
was Wyoming.
Yeah.
Wyoming,
this
Michigan.
One. Yes. Okay. Right.
That exactly. Scenario happened in Wyoming, Michigan.
Yep. And we see it. We see it all the time. Where the guns are drawn, they go in, they don't give an individual a chance to explain. Like, remember the lawyer who was dumping his garbage, in a bin, and his name is on the building right there.
And he gives the officer his
card, and they are pissed because he won't give them an ID. And so remember, even if an officer says, hey, come here, hey, do this, remember, you're probably detained. And you can clarify that by going, well, am I free to go? And they'll say, no, I need to do this. Okay, you're detained. And they haven't touched you yet.
Yep.
Haven't touched you at all.
If you're detained,
right,
I would like my attorney.
That's right. Especially if they're going to question you on a crime and you didn't call them, So we see that still happening, whereby we have to freeze in our boots. If just to think, hey, we're going to go look at a house today and it's in the Fabulous 40s car, should we bring a bunch of white people with us? I mean, you've got to really, really think, hey, is somebody going to say, I seen these people and they're going in a house over there and it's vacant and we know? And then we have a bad day because of that? Because, everybody can say no harm, no foul. Just cooperate, get along. But what they don't understand is the psychological effect that has. First of all, we have it in us innately, and we're waiting for triggers.
And it doesn't happen to everyone. Right? I guarantee you, had they shown up at that house and there had been a white person at the home who said, oh, I'm a realtor, I'm showing this to him and it's, oh, okay, sorry, we're sorry we disturbed you.
Because they probably knew the house was up for sale.
So there needs to be a retraining. Now, Lawman just said, we have to freeze to try and get through these. But then that brings us to a situation that I believe just happened in Colorado, where I believe the officers try and stop 3 people. I think 2 of the people run off, but the one person freezes, stays, sits on the ground, says, I haven't done anything wrong. And the officer wants him to lay on his stomach. Now, he's on an area that, from what I can see, appears to be a bunch of gravel or rock, right? And the officer wants him to lay on his stomach. And he's asking, well, why? I haven't done anything wrong. I don't have any warrants. And then he moves to turn on his stomach, apparently not fast enough for the officer. The officer appears to grind his face in the rocks. In addition, now mind you, the man has nothing in his hand, doesn't appear to have anything at all, isn't posing any threat. He's on the ground on his butt.
Gave up a long time ago.
And well, he never ran.
No, that's what I mean. He gave up a long time ago.
He did. There was nothing to give up.
Right.
He complied. But because he's not complying fast enough and in the just foul fashion that the officer wants him to, why do you want somebody to lay on the ground on rocks? The officer pulls his gun on him. Again, what is the purpose of the gun? The gun is to be used when there is a deadly threat to the officer or to another citizen. There is no threat from this young man. And the officer puts the gun to his head and then pistol whips him with the gun. He begins bleeding profusely. He's crying, "You're killing me, you're killing me." And the officer continues with that behavior. There is a second officer, I believe it was a female, who is present, who says nothing, who does nothing, who does not tell her partner, this is not necessary. Now, I will say that I believe the police chief, that charges are being filed against them. Yeah. But the police chief tried to say that this was an anomaly. An anomaly means it's rare, it's odd, it's unusual.
One in a lifetime.
But it's not. We see this happening day after day after day.
Yep. In fact, to dovetail on that, there was a black female in a place. I'll have to get it. I forget where it was, but it's some significant place. Mm-hmm. And a large male cop, and I think he was black even. And there was a female cop with him. And the woman was in cuffs on the ground. And she leaned up as if to ask a question or answer something to the officer, and he kicked her in the face. And he was fired, I believe, after that, or at least on suspension. But another situation where there was absolutely no threat. And they wanted to give punishment to people. You know, there's the old saying, you know, you run from the cops and stuff, then, you know, you're going to get an ass whooping.
So I think that was actually in Atlanta. And again, now I have to be fearful because I have relatives that live in Atlanta. It was an Atlanta police officer. Yeah. He has not been fired. I believe he has been suspended.
Yes, the one who kicked the woman?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, they're looking into it, you know. But they got it on video because somebody just happened to be, I guess, you know, nearby and shot it. And I mean, she does nothing but look up because she's on her chest, and she looks up, and he rears and kicks her right in the head.
The face. Now, police officers, correct me if I'm wrong, wear steel-toe boots. That is going to do some serious damage. I can tell you, if I had a client that kicked someone in the head with a steel-toe boot, he might get charged with attempted murder.
Yeah. Yep. And here, this guy will just be suspended with pay probably. And, you know, if he gets fired, he'll probably go somewhere else and get another job.
And so I think the officer's alleged explanation was that she was spitting, but it didn't get on him. But she spit a second time and he got on his boot. So that was enough of a threat for him to kick a human being in the head with a steel-toe boot? No. And we cannot let this kind of conduct continue. We have to let our elected officials know we're not going to stand for this. You're not going to continue to treat us and our people, American citizens, in this way.
So it seems to get darker and darker. Every month, something's coming out. Almost every week, something's coming out from all over the nation. Whether it's Wyoming or Alabama or Atlanta or California.
Well, that brings us to an incident in Miami Beach.
Yeah.
Where apparently there was a young man who was on a scooter. And I think he may have bumped a bicycle cop or something. Or he went past him fast. The cop thinks he bumped him. And he went into, I guess he got off the scooter and he went into a hotel. An officer follows him into the hotel, tells him to get on the ground. I believe he's in front of the elevator. And he's about to get on the elevator, but he doesn't. He immediately gets on the ground and he prones his entire body out. He is not a threat at all. Then you see approximately another 10 to 15 officers rush in there. And I believe one of the officers kicks him. one of the officers hits him. There is another man who is filming this incident, and one of the officers then tackles him for filming their misconduct. We are going to let them know and put them on notice. You can't kill all of us, and we will continue filming you.
Yeah, and what the bottom line in all of this is justification, accountability, like you say. Look, I can't go out and beat somebody. She can't either. We can't go out and just administer pain to individuals who, whether we like them or not.
But this is what law enforcement officers are doing. Apparently, they mad at their wife. They've had a bad day. They're not happy with their job assignment. Choose a new job.
Right.
Your job is to protect and serve, and
Right.
you are not doing that. Protect and serve is all of the citizens that are in your jurisdiction, not just the ones you pick and
right.
choose.
If you are arresting someone and you have right to arrest them, probable cause to arrest, and you do that, that person is innocent till proven guilty. So are you giving out the punishment? You see what I mean? Are they the judge and jury right then and there? And a lot of people would argue that that's exactly what happens in police shootings, is that they're the judge and jury, because you can be running from them, not causing a threat, and they're tired of running after you and may shoot you.
And again, that goes to training.
And it's sad we would have to train people not to do that. That
you can arrest somebody using proper techniques. You were supposedly trained. And if you don't remember the arrest and control techniques that you were taught, ask for retraining.
Or that job is not for you.
Or that job is not for you.
If you can't type well, don't be a typist.
There you have it.
So, I saw article, cop shootings are up since 2015, even through the pandemic and all the desperation and everything. The shootings are up 69,000. 6,900 so far since then. They show that blacks are pulled over and searched. You have a 61% chance of that happening to you versus anyone else. So are we still targets? Yeah, I think they target us sometimes. I think they do.
Clearly.
Do they then punish us before even arresting us? If we even need to be arrested? Sure they do. And is it because of the fear of us? Or is it just because of aggression and being an officer?
So Sheepdog Protector says, so states have made illegal to record them. I believe there are a few states where it is illegal to record them. So you do have to check the state that you live in.
Now, I'll tell you something.
To say,
go ahead. Yeah, no, First Amendment. I was going to say, wait, yeah.
I'm going to say there should be, hopefully the ACLU should be challenging, in those states should be challenging those particular laws. But yes, check the state in which you live. But I will tell you this, if it is my loved one or someone else's loved one, I'm going to go ahead and take that misdemeanor for recording, or even that felony if it can save a brother or a sister's life.
It shows the truth
of what really happened.
Shows the truth. Yeah. But for video, come on.
A lot of reports are pencil whipped, and the officer, if there's no video, the officer writes down whatever he wants about what happened. And again, it's unfortunate, but people tend to believe, well, why would the officer lie? We're seeing now why the officers lie, because they engage in a lot of misconduct.
And it's the recording thing. I would always check the statute, because it's probably something that just limits recording.
There's some
bans it altogether
that ban recording
because there's a First Amendment issue I would have with that if we are in a public place. You see, that's why I'm wondering, is it okay if you're in a certain place or time or things like that? Because when you're in the public, it's your right to take pictures. You can take pictures. You can film things.
Again, we're going to say in your specific state, check the law. But I'm telling you, my position is some laws, it is unfortunate, but some laws have to be broken to get change.
John
I'm
Lewis
not
was
going
talking
to
about that.
allow you to kill somebody or mistreat somebody and then lie about it in a report if I have the opportunity to record that misconduct. And again, I will say there have been a few occasions where I've been riding around with a colleague and we see officers have somebody pulled over, and we pull over and watch and record what's going on, so that hopefully that will deter that misconduct. Now, it doesn't always. As you can see, some of these officers are really bold in their
caught on their
mistreatment.
own body cams and things.
They're really bold with their mistreatment.
Right.
But they also do things with their own body cams to basically
hide.
Yes.
Put mud on it, or just happen to put
or
their hands on it.
If what is being said is important, there's a pet technique that they do. So this is what you hear instead of hearing what the mic should be recording.
Right.
Or placing the notepad in front of the video.
Yeah.
And the one that I saw that I was a little bit shocked by, the person was recording the officer, I think something that he was saying. And so what the officer did was then turned on some music.
Yes, that's a new way of doing it. Because the music is copyrighted. And so if they play a real popular song, then you have to edit it when you're replaying it.
Because if you post it with that song,
you have to pay the royalties.
It's likely that the provider or the servicer,
the owner,
will take it down.
Right. So, and that's a slick one. I mean, that one, oh my goodness. Now you're robbing Peter to pay Paul stuff. It's just, okay. We're going to go to whatever length necessary. But it's further proof
that you're engaging in misconduct. Because if you're truly doing the job the way the job is supposed to be done, you wouldn't engage in those kind of tactics.
And that's been the police position, is we need body cams because we want to show the truth. We want to show how good we are, how we do things good.
Oh, I haven't heard any of them.
Oh, that was demanding. We welcome body cams because it gets to show that we're doing our job properly.
Oh, maybe that was some of the chiefs. I don't remember. The line officers.
And that's the thing.
Body cams.
That's what I mean by the difference, between that is that, policy, apply are going, hey, you guys wear them because now we can be justified in doing what we do. But, it's, I don't know. I hate the concept of, oh my goodness, you mean these individuals who I pay, who I trust probably with my life, would actually hide what they're doing?
Do you trust them with your life?
Well, if I had to call them to save me, and and then they shoot me. You see what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying.
This is what I'm saying. It's like it makes it questionable to make that call, because a number of people have been people who have been having mental health issues, and their families have called, only to result in law enforcement showing up and then killing them.
Yeah.
So I know that a number of cities are trying to get trained emergency responders rather than law enforcement officers to go out to particular calls, especially where it is clearly a mental illness issue.
Correct. And that is another way of funding the police, right? If you want to give them the money to give to citizens to do that, great. Or
I don't trust them to give.
Of course not. That's why the or is there. Let the city just run.
The city can choose their own program, and this much funding is going to go to mental health emergency response, and this much is going to go to regular law enforcement response.
And they can put some money into education too. You see. That would be wonderful. Law enforcement can do more in terms of education. So, but, it's we complain a lot. And so we probably have to do a show where all the good things that the cops do and stuff, and all the great things that they do. Because, look, the organization may not have started out as one that was for justice for all and things like that. But it is intended to be a protection of the people, all people. Now, now, if it is not, then someone has to tell us. That's not really what it's supposed to be. Was that whole signing of the Declaration? The wink
Well,
thing about all men are created
I
equal,
will I
or
will say this about conservatives. They tend to lean very heavily on the Constitution. What they need to understand is that that Constitution applies to all United States citizens, those who have melanin in their skin. It applies to us as well.
that's right. And so juxtapose that with the individuals on January 6th. You see, these good citizens were now tearing up their Constitution. They were just tearing it up, and that's supposed to be taken easily, and so I guess it means, there were Notre Dame and a whole bunch of predictors of the future used to always say, the time, times are bad when times get really confusing like that. You don't know who's the good guy and the bad guy. That's when things get really, really crazy because you don't know who's good and who's bad. It all starts mixing in together. And I'm hoping that we're not moving through that, but when you start doing researching all the articles, all the behaviors, it's hard to tell who are the good guys and who are the bad guys. Look at our politicians, right? We trusted politics up until pretty much Nixon. When it was revealed that, oh my God, these guys playing dirty and stuff, and then ever since then, I mean, it's changed, and they do some crazy ass shit now. I mean, stuff now, and we elect them still. And it's like, well, can't we elect somebody who ain't sending dick pics or doing this or having a, can't we do that? I said the good people, you don't know who's good or bad anymore. If you listen to the right wing, the left people are socialists who want to put us in communism. They literally want to rip our language and our history and all this kind of stuff away.
Except that if you look at the conservatives, they are the ones who are against the telling and the teaching of the true history of the United States. And we have to face what our history is. We don't have to like it. We can say it's our history and it's bad and we don't want that to happen again.
Right.
But we can't ignore it.
Right.
No one tells the Jews that they can't discuss the Jewish Holocaust.
Right.
So we're going to discuss the African American Holocaust, and that was slavery in the United States of America.
Right.
You're not going to stop us from talking about it. And it didn't end, as we always say, with slavery. What came after slavery?
Jim Crow.
What they do after Jim Crow.
And revisionist theories. And it kept us still not true citizens, although we were. And we were not allowed to participate in the public events that were going on.
We were not. And they did everything they did. Oh, okay, you can vote, but there's a grandfather clause. You can only vote if your grandfather could vote. Well, you knew that my grandfather couldn't vote because my grandfather was a slave. So there were all sorts of sleights of hand that have been played throughout the years after slavery to keep us as second-class citizens. We're not going to maintain that position anymore. We're first-class citizens, and that's what we're going to be.
We don't have another 100 years, to wait it out and see, will justice truly prevail and all that kind of stuff.
We have a question from All Through Experience. How is it possible we segregate ourselves?
Wow. Can Keith take that one?
I will let Keith take that one.
All right. That is a big question. I really think that is the thing, because now, and there could be two meanings to that. How is it possible we segregate ourselves, right?
Do we segregate ourselves?
I'm going to take no. Well, and that's the thing. Is it good that we do that? You see, or is it something bad that we do unconsciously? Well, no. We've been trying to live in this society and mix in this world forever. So I don't think we've been segregating ourselves from America. But should we? How do we do it if it should happen? Because at some point, if you're living in a home and there's abuse and they won't let you do anything, you want to get out of there. You want to do your time and get out, or you will escape and get out. You will segregate yourself from that home. So how do you do it? Well, the first thing that we have to do is definitely start looking at each other a little differently, with more humanness about it. It sounds all, that's easy to do, touchy feely, woo woo woo, but it's not what we're doing. You see, so we need to first turn that faucet on. That we help each other, that we encourage each other, that we buy from each other, that we share with each other, that we don't kill each other, we don't harm each other. No matter what sin is on our back that making us do it, we got to learn to knock that off. And everybody's got to look at it that way. That we're not trying. She's no better than me. I'm no better than her.
No matter what side of town he's from, or I'm from, or
right.
we live on.
Right.
We do have another comment. What class citizens are the Native Americans who receive payment for their suffering? Are we really third class citizens?
or do we have a class at all? Or are we the ones who don't? But back to that, that's the first thing we got to do. Yeah, we segregate ourselves by loving each other, loving on each other, thinking that way, that we can help each other. And that's just a philosophy. That's all. Like, any religion, right? Okay, the philosophy is we help each other. And then everything flows from there. Now, back to the citizens.
And regarding the Native Americans and the payment that they receive for their suffering, I really don't like to compare one group's pain with another group's pain, right? But I will say that is why there is a movement, and there has been a movement, but it has gotten stronger, for reparations.
Exactly. Because that's what's happening with them.
And so, again, you will have people who say, well, slavery was over so long ago. Why should I have to pay for that? It's not just that. It's everything that has happened. It's that plus everything else that has happened.
The impact.
Redlining.
Right.
Not allowing us to attend certain schools.
Exactly. It's what has happened since then.
Yes. And that happened to my parents. So you were not going to tell me, oh, that was so long ago. No. Redlining, my parents.
Right. So should we get money? You better believe it. Of course we should. And it's using our brain and ability as a people moving forward in order to accomplish it. And if we have
another comment from Sheepdog Protector. In slavery days, they would take the biggest and the strongest slave and kill him in front of other slaves to instill fear in the other slaves. That is true. That is true. It was an extremely brutal system.
Exactly.
That gave this country its wealth. America's wealth was based on the value of the slaves.
Yep.
We were the wealth of this country. It was on the back of our ancestors. So you don't get to just take that wealth and say, oh, well, now that's mine.
Right. Or at least now that I've got to be fair about the things, it's okay, isn't it? We're good, right? Right? We set you free, right?
Except that there still isn't fairness.
Right. So, and it lingers on. And it's sad that...
we were still fighting in, 60s and 70s to be able to attend certain colleges.
Yeah. 65 is not that long ago.
No, it's not.
If you're 55 years old, you were born in 65. So you lived in that time period. Your parents and everybody around you could tell you all about that experience. Bring Tulsa back. Definitely. We need a lot of Tulsas again, And I'm going to tell you something. The way that they thought back then that, hey, wait a minute, they're isolating us, from all this. You know what? But Harry over there has got a gas station. Billy over here has this. We all, let's go live on this part of that and build our houses and do that stuff. The Amish, right? What do? It's few of them, but they build houses and barns for each other in their community.
And nobody bothers them.
In fact, they stay away from them, don't they? They leave them alone.
They let them do what they want to do. Right. And my understanding, not to bring up a point of contention, that there is a lot of molestation that goes on in well, I shouldn't say a lot, but there's molestation that goes on in the Amish community, and they are not treated, even though they still fall under the same judicial system, they are not treated as harshly as other people when that information comes out.
But building that community, it's that kind of stuff,
So,
that has to happen.
and we can bring Tosa back in Sacramento.
It's true. I mean,
You want to find out Black businesses, go to the Black Business Chamber, the Black Business Chamber of Commerce, and they will have a list of the Black businesses that are members.
and a radical way of thinking about this is this. Like she said, the Sacramento. Think about what makes up Sacramento, right? You've got Elk Grove, Orangevale, you've got Alberta, all these places that are on the outskirts. And if you've lived here long enough, you remember when all those places were born, when they grew from little towns, areas to cities, incorporated, Elk Grove is a perfect example, man. In the last 30, 40 years, Elk Grove. So I know. In terms of growing a community, it's very similar to that. It's finding the place, the builders, the people that own the land, buying the land, and we start building and creating.
But until we get to that point, because that is a process,
right?
We can support each other now.
Right. Got to crawl before you can walk, right?
That is right.
All right.
All right. We have come to the end of another evening
Ooh.
with Courtside with Lawman
and Carmen B.
We appreciate you taking your time this evening to spend the evening with us. Again, we appreciate your questions, your comments in the chat.
Yeah.
If you could hit the like button, yes. Check us out on Instagram. And sometimes people don't want to watch a whole show, and we understand that.
That's why there
are shorter clips on Instagram, so you can just watch, 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And certain subject matter. So you can search that as well.
But hopefully, like today, we hope to just drop a lot of knowledge, a lot of thought, get you thinking, fire you up. Whatever it does to you, we want it to happen to you. And sometimes that's all it takes, is lighting fires here and there.
Yes.
So we can't stop, won't stop.
Can't stop, won't stop. We'll see you next Friday.
Thank you.
At 6 p.m. Thank you.